The Red Rock Lodge Motel glowed like a beacon on Route 66 in southern Utah, its neon sign a blazing red rock formation that cast a crimson light across the rugged desert landscape. The air was dry and hot, even at night, thick with the scent of pine from nearby cliffs and the faint smoke of distant wildfires, carried on a breeze that whispered through the sagebrush. Stars blazed overhead, unfiltered by city lights, their brilliance rivaling the neon's fiery glow. I lounged by the motel's empty pool, its water reflecting the red light like a liquid flame, my bikini top and denim shorts casual against the heat, my blonde hair damp from a quick dip, clinging to my shoulders in loose waves. The night was alive with the hum of cicadas and the occasional howl of a coyote, a sound that sent a thrill through me, wild and untamed. My name's Ava, and I'm 27, a hiker who spent the last 3 years mapping trails across the Southwest, my body toned from countless miles, my soul searching for something I couldn't name. I'd pulled into the Red Rock Lodge after a long day trekking a canyon trail, my boots caked with red dust, my backpack heavy with gear, a tent, a water filter, a notebook filled with sketches of cliffs and cacti. The motel was a last-minute choice, its neon sign catching my eye as I drove through the dusk, promising rest and maybe a story to add to my journal. The room I'd checked into was cozy, steeped in fire-themed decor, walls painted a warm terracotta, a double bed draped in blankets patterned with flames, and a lamp shaped like a torch casting a flickering glow that danced across the ceiling. The air smelled of cedar and faintly of chlorine from the pool outside, mingling with the earthy scent of my sunscreen, a constant companion on the trail. I'd checked in with the clerk, a wiry woman named June with a sunburned face and a quick smile, who'd handed me the key to room 9 with a warning about scorpions. I paid with cash from a recent guiding gig, the bills creased from my pocket, and hauled my gear inside, dropping it on the floor with a thud. Now, by the pool, I stretched out on a lounge chair, the plastic warm against my skin, and sipped a bottle of water, its condensation dripping onto my thigh. The neon sign hummed steadily, its red light pulsing like a heartbeat, and I let my eyes trace the stars, each one a pinprick of possibility. The road had been my home for years, each trail a new chapter, but lately, I'd felt a hollowness, a longing for something more than solitude. My last relationship, with a climber named Ryan, had ended on a trail in Colorado, his words sharp as he walked away, leaving me with a torn map and a heart too bruised to trust. The crunch of boots on gravel snapped me out of my thoughts. A figure emerged from the dark, a man with a heavy backpack slung over one shoulder, his silhouette framed by the neon's red glow. He was tall, broad-shouldered, with dark hair matted with sweat and brown eyes that caught the light like embers. He wore a faded t-shirt and cargo pants, his boots scuffed from the trail, and he moved with a quiet confidence, like someone who knew the desert's secrets. He paused by the pool, dropping his pack with a soft thud, and glanced my way, a smile tugging at his lips. "Trail kick your ass too?" he asked, his voice low, warm, with a hint of a western drawl. I laughed, sitting up, my bikini top shifting slightly. "Ava," I said, brushing a damp strand of hair from my face. "And yeah, it tried. You look like you've been out there a while." "Ethan," he replied, crouching by the pool, splashing water on his face. "Just came off a week in Zion. Thought I'd crash here before heading back out." He stood, wiping his hands on his pants, and his eyes met mine, steady and curious. "You hike solo?" "Mostly," I said, standing to face him, the pool's red glow painting my skin. "You?" "Same," he said, his smile widening. "But it's nice to see a friendly face." We talked by the pool, the neon sign casting crimson shadows across his face, highlighting the sharp lines of his jaw. He was a park ranger, he told me, on leave to hike the trails he usually patrolled, chasing freedom before returning to duty. I shared stories of my hikes, slot canyons in Arizona, mesas in New Mexico, the way the desert felt alive under a full moon. The conversation flowed easily, like a trail well traveled, and when I offered him a sip of my water, he took it, his fingers brushing mine, a spark igniting in the dry air. "Wanna swim?" I asked, nodding toward the pool. He grinned, stripping off his shirt to reveal a lean, tan chest, and we dove in, the water cool against the night's heat. We splashed and laughed, the red light rippling around us, and when he pulled me close, his hands on my waist, I felt a fire kindle inside me. We climbed out, dripping, and sat on the lounge chairs, the air warm on our skin. His touch was tentative at first, his fingers tracing the strap of my bikini top, and when he kissed me, it was like a spark catching dry brush, igniting something fierce and wild. We stumbled to my room, the door creaking shut, and fell onto the flame-patterned bed, our bodies moving together like a fire spreading, passionate and consuming. The torch lamp flickered, casting shadows that danced across his skin, and as we lay tangled afterward, his breath hot against my neck, I felt alive, but a shadow in his eyes, fleeting and guarded, hinted at a story he wasn't telling. Morning broke over the Red Rock Lodge, the sun harsh and unrelenting, turning the desert a blazing red that matched the motel's neon, now pale in the daylight. The air was dry, scented with sage and the faint smoke of distant fires, and the cicadas were silent, replaced by the chatter of sparrows. I woke to Ethan's arm across my waist, his breathing steady, but the bed felt too small, the flame-patterned blankets heavy. I slipped out, pulling on my shorts and a fresh t-shirt, and stepped outside, the heat already rising from the asphalt. My eyes caught on his backpack, half open on the floor, and a glint of ink peeked out, a photo tucked into a side pocket. I hesitated, then pulled it free, my heart sinking as I saw it, Ethan with a woman, her arms around him, both smiling against a canyon backdrop. Her name was written on the back in faded ink, Lena. The door creaked, and Ethan emerged, shirtless, his hair tousled. "Morning," he said, his smile fading when he saw the photo in my hand. "Where'd you find that?" "Your pack," I said, my voice sharp, holding it up. "Who's Lena?" He sighed, running a hand through his hair, and sat on the bed, the mattress creaking. "She's an ex," he said, his voice low, heavy with something like regret. "We were together a couple years ago. She was a hiker too, but it didn't work out." I set the photo down, my heart pounding. "Why keep it?" He looked away, his brown eyes distant. "It's a reminder," he said, "of what I lost, what I learned. But last night, Ava, that was different. That was real." His words were a spark, but doubt smoldered, a slow burn in my chest. We dressed in silence, me in my hiking gear, him in a clean t-shirt and pants, and headed to a diner down the road, a weathered place with a neon cactus sign and booths sticky with syrup. Over coffee and pancakes, he told me about Lena, how they'd met on a trail in Nevada, how their love had been wild but fleeting, like a desert fire that burned out too fast. She'd left him for a job in Seattle, chasing a life he couldn't follow. I shared my own scars, Ryan, the climber who'd walked away, leaving me with a torn map and a heart too heavy for the trail. The road had been my refuge, my way of keeping my heart safe, but Ethan's touch had ignited something I thought was gone. We spent the day hiking a nearby trail, the red rocks towering above us, the sun baking our skin. He held my hand, his grip steady, and we laughed about a squirrel that stole my granola bar, the tension easing for a moment. But the photo lingered in my mind, an ember that wouldn't die, and when we returned to the Red Rock Lodge that evening, the neon sign flaring to life, I felt the heat of doubt rising. We sat by the pool, the red light rippling across the water, and I leaned against him, his arm warm around my shoulders. "What happens when you go back to being a ranger, Ethan?" I asked, my voice quiet. "Will you carry her with you?" He turned to me. his brown eyes fierce, catching the neon's glow. "No," he said, his voice firm. "You're not her, Ava. You're the fire I didn't see coming." He pulled the photo from his pack, tore it in half, and tossed it into the pool, the pieces sinking into the red-lit water. "I choose you." My heart surged, but doubt still smoldered, a flicker in the ashes. We went back to my room, the door clicking shut, and made love again, fiercer this time, like we were burning away the past. The bed creaked, the torch lamp casting flames on our skin, and as we moved together, I tried to believe his promise. His hands were sure, his breath hot against my skin, and for those moments, the world was just us, no photo, no past, no road. But as I drifted to sleep, his arms around me, the neon's hum blending with his breathing, I wondered if a torn photo could extinguish a history, or if love found in a motel was just a flame that would flicker out with the dawn. Weeks turned into a month at the Red Rock Lodge, the motel becoming a sanctuary in the vastness of Route 66. Ethan and I fell into a rhythm that felt like a trail well trodden, mornings spent hiking together, our boots crunching on red dirt, the cliffs casting shadows that cooled our skin, afternoons in small-town bars, where he'd share stories of his ranger days and I'd sketch maps in my notebook, evenings by the pool, sharing beers under the neon's crimson glow, the water reflecting our laughter. His touch was familiar now, his laugh a spark that lit up my days, and he'd tease me about my sunburned nose, calling me his desert flame. I'd laugh, swatting his arm, my heart lighter than it had been in years, the weight of my past burning away with each day we spent together. We'd explore the desert, mapping new trails, and he'd tell me about his dreams, a cabin in the mountains, a place to call home after years on the move. I shared my own hopes, ones I'd buried under miles of dust, leading guided hikes, maybe starting a blog about the trails I loved, capturing the desert's soul in words and sketches. He'd listen, his brown eyes soft, and say, "You're unstoppable, Ava. The desert's got nothing on you." His words were kindling, fueling a fire I'd thought was out, and I started drafting posts in my notebook, pages filled with stories of our hikes, our nights, our growing bond. But Lena's shadow lingered, a faint ember in our fire, surfacing in quiet moments. I'd catch him staring at the cliffs, his eyes distant, like he was seeing her face in the rock formations. I'd think of my own past, Ryan, the men before him, the promises that crumbled like sandstone. I'd sworn never to trust like that again, but Ethan's warmth, his steady hands, made me want to try. I'd watch him carve a walking stick from a fallen branch, his knife precise, and wonder what stories he wasn't telling me, what embers still glowed in his heart. One night, under the neon's red blaze, a wildfire smoke drifted in, the air thick and acrid. We sat by the pool, the water glowing like molten lava, and I couldn't hold it in anymore. "Is she still there, Ethan?" I asked, my voice shaking, the smoke stinging my eyes. "Is Lena still in your heart?" He turned to me, his face raw with emotion, the neon casting flames in his eyes. "No," he said, his voice firm, cutting through the haze. "She's gone, Ava. I was running from her, from everything, when I found you." He stood, pulling me to my feet, and kissed me, his lips desperate and sure, tasting of smoke and resolve. "You're my fire," he said, his hands framing my face, and I felt the truth in his words, a blaze that consumed my doubt. We stumbled back to room 9, the door clicking shut, and he showed me a journal he'd kept, pages filled with sketches of trails, but the last entry was about me, my strength, my laugh, the way I made him feel alive. "This is what I want," he said, his voice low, urgent. "You. Us." We made love that night, slow and tender, the wildfire smoke seeping through the window, the torch lamp casting flames on our skin. His hands traced my body like he was mapping a new trail, and I let myself fall, let myself burn. The next week, he proposed we leave together. Head north to Montana, where he'd build his cabin and I'd lead hikes, maybe start that blog. My heart pounded, fear and hope warring within me, a fire of my own. I thought of the trails, the motels, the life I'd built to keep moving, to keep my heart safe. But Ethan's hand in mine felt like home, like a flame that wouldn't die, and I nodded, my throat tight with tears. "Okay," I whispered. "Let's do it." We packed our gear, his backpack, my tent, my notebook filled with dreams, and climbed into my truck, the Chevy's engine rumbling to life. The Red Rock Lodge faded in the rearview mirror, its neon sign a memory against the dawn, the cliffs glowing red in the rising sun. Route 66 stretched behind us, but ahead lay new trails, wide and uncertain. His hand found mine, his smile steady, his brown eyes bright with promise. We stopped at a canyon that afternoon, sharing a granola bar, its crumbs falling to the red dirt as we laughed. He sketched in his journal, and I wrote in my notebook, our dreams intertwining like the trails we'd walked. Love on Route 66 was a fire, sometimes a spark, sometimes a blaze, but it was ours. The horizon was endless, red and open, and as we drove, his hand on my knee, I felt the weight of the past burn away, replaced by a flame of hope, carrying us toward a future we'd build together.